עכשיו אנחנו ראינו שיש כוונה של טורקיה להתבסס בשדה תעופה דרומית לקו שלה, קרוב לחלב, והעברנו מסר. איך אגדיר לך את המסר?
That was Benjamin Netanyahu on August 19, publicly presenting an Israeli strike on Syria's Abu al-Dhuhr airbase as a warning aimed directly at Turkey. But Israel's security premise was immediately disputed. Syrian Foreign Minister Assad al-Shaybani said he had explicitly told Israel there was no plan for a Turkish base, permanent military presence, or troop deployment at Abu al-Dhuhr. Turkey said no Turkish personnel were at the base before or during the strike. The United States called the bombing an unnecessary escalation that does not advance regional stability. US Ambassador to Ankara Tom Barak also said US intelligence found no evidence supporting Israel's claim, suggesting there may have been a miscommunication within the Israeli military and government. This did not begin with Abu al-Dhuhr. In a CNN interview in July, Netanyahu sought to drive a wedge between Washington and Ankara, portraying Turkey as hostile to the US and personally urging Trump to block its return to the F-35 program. Netanyahu's office again targeted President Erdogan personally over Ankara's move to seek an Interpol notice for Netanyahu over the Gaza flotilla case involving the illegal interception of civilian aid vessels in international waters. Ankara's response went directly to the political motive. Turkey's communication directorate called the attacks on President Erdogan an indication of the helplessness of an administration trying to evade accountability. It said Netanyahu's efforts to construct Turkey as a new threat was part of cheap politics shaped by irresponsible security-focused populism. The timing matters. Israel votes on October 27. Reports say the Likud's popularity has fallen sharply since October 7, 2023, and polls suggest the party could lose around a third of its seats. Around 1 in 5 Israeli voters remain undecided. Netanyahu does not merely need votes, he needs a campaign narrative. Turkey is increasingly become part of it. Days before the airbase strike, Netanyahu shared a Likud election billboard showing President Erdogan alongside Iran's Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei, Hezbollah chief Naim Qassem, and New York Mayor Zohran Mamdani. The message read, "They want Netanyahu to lose. Don't let them win." This was campaign advertising, not a security briefing. Erdogan's image was being used to turn a foreign policy dispute into a desperate, personalized election prop. The contrast with Netanyahu's 2019 campaign is striking, but then Likud covered its Tel Aviv headquarters with giant images of Netanyahu alongside Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin, and Narendra Modi under the message that he was in another league. In 2026, the imagery has flipped, not powerful friends, but figures voters are told want Netanyahu defeated. The tactic itself is not new. In 1996, after a wave of bombings turned security into the dominant election issue, Netanyahu narrowly defeated Shimon Peres. In 2015, with the race tightening, he warned supporters that Arab citizens were heading to the polls in droves. Security, fear, and confrontation have repeatedly become political assets when Netanyahu has been under electoral pressure. October 7, 2023 dealt a devastating blow to the security image Netanyahu had spent decades building. International news agencies have described his security credentials as left in tatters. Since then, Israeli aggression has expanded across Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, and Iran, while criticism inside Israel has mounted over the October 7 failure and the conduct of the wars that followed. Political survival also carries personal stakes. Netanyahu remains on trial on charges of bribery, fraud, and breach of trust, which he denies. In 2025, he asked Israel's president for a pardon while remaining in office. The claim that Turkey is being turned into an election tool is directly coming from inside Israel's own political establishment. Former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak called the deliberate escalation with Turkey reckless and stupid. Barak said it strongly reeks of a political motive, arguing that security tensions could fuel public anxiety ahead of the election. He stressed that Turkey is neither Iran nor Assad's Syria. Opposition leader Yair Golan called the strike provocative and dangerous. Former Defense Minister Moshe Yaalon accused Netanyahu of keeping old war fronts open while creating new ones to avoid accountability for October 7. This is the weakness behind the show of force, what Netanyahu presents as deterrence. Senior Israeli critics increasingly describe as a political survival tool. The pattern is clear. An unsubstantiated allegation about the Turkish armed forces is manufactured into a security threat. The supposed threat is then used to justify an airstrike on the territory of a sovereign state. And finally, it becomes election campaign material. And the same playbook repeats whenever Netanyahu comes under political pressure. So the question is no longer simply why Netanyahu is confronting Turkey, but how far he is prepared to raise regional tensions when his own political future is on the line.